Can I show you? My yes is flutter light, and we both lean in, her nose, then lips, silken soft and slick with gloss, mine with velvet coating. She tastes of cardamom and sea salt, and my heart, it's so big, and it's radiating energy and waves and colors all around us, pulsing with every breath we sneak through our mouths. This is how it's supposed to feel. Flying through the city, catching every green light, headed exactly where you want to go.
And not to Dick Grabber Restaurant. You know what I mean? That's not the destination.
I'm Melody Carlisle.
And I'm Sabrina Bradley.
And this is Heaving Bosoms. This is the podcast where best friends recap romance novels and other kissing media that makes us swoon, snark, and refills our cups.
Whether you've read the book or are coming in blind, we'll lay bare every delicious scene and revel in the tropes and subgenres that make romance amazing.
All right, listener, strap in and strap on. Headphones are highly recommended.
Cooking with gas.
Yeah, we are.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I took the kids yesterday, I told you, to park, splash pad, friend pool party. You know, it was a whole day. It was a whole day out in the sun. But I think my favorite moment from one of my absolutely ridiculous children was overhearing, because I was like around the apparatus on the other side on the playground. And I heard Ember, who is 8, look at a dad who had like a 1-year-old that had been, you know, sort of following the kids around. It was very cute. Mm-hmm. And then I heard Ember look at the dad and go, "Yeah, my mom says I'm notoriously good with babies."
All right, Ember.
And I was like, "Ember, have I said you're notoriously good? Like, I'm pretty sure I've just said you're super great with babies." You know what I mean?
Notoriously, though.
He's infamously good with babies.
He's known Mr. Worldwide when it comes to baby taming.
He is the Pitbull of baby taming, is what Ember told this dad.
Mr. Worldwide. Oh, man. Oh, no.
It was super cute.
I am going to be listening to Pitbull while I work today.
That's a great idea.
It is a good, like,
Pitbull.
pump you up. Like, it's going to be a very, very active day of work where I'm, like, head bobbing and, like, going for it. But, like, I had a music plan for the day, and that's just... It's all gone now.
I mean, actually, this is even more apropos than I thought the bit was going to be. But have you seen the videos out there that are babies crying until you play them Pitbull? And then they stop crying?
No!
There is a non-zero amount of videos of babies getting calmed down by specifically listening to Pitbull.
Wow. That's... I would
Mr.
never...
Worldwide of baby taming.
Okay. So, we have patrons.
Yeah! Oh!
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey, y'all. Thanks for being part of the Patreon community. We fucking love you, and we super, super appreciate the way that you're so directly supporting the podcast. Like, there are a ton of ways to support the podcast, and we appreciate everyone. But we are going to specifically shout out these patrons. So, hey, thanks and welcome to DM and a roving woman.
To Jillian W. and Cindy R.
Carrie E. and Christine M.
Corinne M. and Trey D.
Judy L. and Becky L.
E.F. Dodd and Emily T.
Hey!
Hello.
Welcome. Thanks
Thank
for being
you.
here. And this Friday, we're doing the author hang.
Yeah, this Friday is Elizabeth Stevens.
With Elizabeth Stevens.
I'm very excited. So we're recording this before, but I might be meeting her in person at Steamy Lit Con.
Right. That's right.
It's fine. I'm fine. I'm cool. I'm chill. I'm relaxed.
You're going to be so cool about it. It's
honestly in person. I'm fine. When I'm not around the person, I'm like a squeeing mess, and then I meet them in person, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're just a human like me.
You're a human, yeah. Mm-hmm. You're a human in the world.
Hey, friend.
Okay, this book. How did you feel about book?
This book was beautiful, and it made me cry a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
This book was intense. Okay. So we did Sorry Bro by Taleen Voskuni. It is a romance, and it, at the same time that it is a sapphic romance, I also felt like it was a love letter to heritage, like a romance with one's own heritage and finding oneself. Like this was not strictly a romance.
It was sort of a coming of age story as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that portion of it is what made it not a melody book. Mm-hmm. Because I loved the way that each chapter started with an Armenian proverb. And in the audiobook, it's spoken in both English and Armenian. It's
I was going to ask.
It's fucking gorgeous. I think that I would have absolutely loved, like wouldn't be able to get enough of this book if it at least had like a split POV, because this 27-year-old teenager, like I had a really hard time being in this lady's brain.
In her head,
really hard
the
time
whole
with
time.
It. Yeah.
I could see that. I think that it was straddling the line between, I guess, what you would call like coming of age women's fiction and coming of age romance. And I think that I really liked the book. I loved the book, but it could have benefited from leaning a little harder in one of the directions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. I think I also need to do some disclaimers, because this is a very melody-specific, my exact background, my exact preferences. Objectively, this is a fucking gorgeous, amazing book.
Yes.
They're just my personal pet peeves that I need to say out loud so that people understand like where the not criticism is coming from. Does that make sense? So this character was baffling to me. And I don't know if it's because I have the very particular privilege of not having a great relationship with my only living parent. But like, I could not understand a single one of this person's choices the whole time. And like at all. I couldn't understand any of it because her family seemed so great. And I understand like the internalized, criticism or the internalized bigotry that you can get from like being in a specific space. But how did she end up maybe engaged or maybe broken up for a month while her boyfriend was in Germany?
Yeah,
what is that?
So like the entire there was a lot of times in the book where she was talking about how she and her boyfriend were broken up, and I was like, but you're not.
Are you? Or
you're
like,
not broken up. You never broke up with him. It was very clearly stated by both of you that you're on a break while he's in Germany and you're going to reconvene when he's back.
Yeah.
You making the decision that you are going to end it when he gets back does not constitute you being broken up, madam. Like, that's not how that works.
No, and him saying, I'm breaking up with you so that you can't break up with me out of, like, emotion and spite does also not constitute a breakup. Because you still have the ring, and if you said yes, he would still be marrying you. Like, that whole thing was bananas to me. The fact that she felt weird about, like, telling people she was either broken up or engaged. Like, there were so many things that... There were so many moments where I was just, if you just use your fucking words, none of this would be a problem at all. And in some cases, I totally understood why that felt unattainable. But in cases like, I'm just out of a long-term 5-year relationship, that's not a hard sentence to say out loud. you know, or like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not marrying you, and no, I think we should break up. It's a hard decision to make, but it's not like trying to come out to your conservative family. You know, like there were just things that I was like, what is happening right now? And why are you like this?
So
you know?
like, I could understand the challenge with the 5-year relationship ending one.
Yes.
Where like getting those like leaving it in limbo and putting it off until he's back from Germany because it's too hard to do. I totally understand. But there were a lot of times where I was like, come on. Like, madam, I need you to be a little bit more open and honest with Yirabuni. Like,
and with yourself.
Yes.
Like, I need you to make an actual decision, period, the end. And this is coming from an incredibly indecisive person. I am notoriously indecisive. So maybe this is me looking at my younger self and being like, get your shit together. Or I don't know what it was, but she was a hard brain to be in for me the whole time.
I can totally see that.
And I loved the relationships that were portrayed. I loved Yirabuni. I loved like so much about this book. I loved everything I learned about Armenia because I didn't know most of this stuff about Armenian history.
This is, I have a note in here at one point, it's like halfway through the book, but the entire book, learning about Armenian history and Armenian culture, it never felt extremely heavy-handed, I think, because of the way that the character was approaching it as somebody with Armenian ancestry who kind of knew these things, but didn't really. And it was very digestible, you know? I thought. And it was a very good book, ultimately.
Yes.
Like, what it boils down to is, like, we have issues with you know what I mean? Like, these aren't issues that are
but I think
specific.
what I want to make sure to convey is that if I come at somebody's jugular in this episode, it is specifically the character and not the writing or the writing choices or whatever. I just had really big feelings about this person if they were a real person. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, because I really enjoyed reading the book, but like this is not a Melody book. She just stressed me out a ton, is all I'm saying. She was very stressful for me. Okay, so we open up and this 27-year-old woman is at a beer garden, basically. She's at like a German beer and brats restaurant that's like college party central.
Yes. She's there and she's running a little bit late because she's meeting her boyfriend of 4.5 years, Trevor. Oh, Trevor. My God.
Listen, Trevor is not my cup of tea, but also Trevor did nothing wrong. She just shouldn't be dating Trevor. I don't know how she's dating Trevor. I don't know why she's dating Trevor.
Well, the reason she's dating Trevor is holdovers from her relationship with her father. The reason she's dating Trevor is daddy issues.
Okay,
daddy issues that will never be resolved because her father is no longer of this world.
Yeah. So she started dating him 4.5 years ago, and both of her parents, I think, were born in Armenia and then came over.
Yeah,
so
that's what it sounded
first generation
like.
born here. And the dad was of the, like, his strategy to naturalizing into America was to be like, Armenia who? Like, I speak the language, but, like, we don't want to talk about it. We want to focus on the present.
Colloquially, socially, he changes his name. He doesn't want, like, he wants to basically live the all-American white picket fence, 2.5 kids, American dream style, go to country clubs, all of these things. Like, he doesn't want to drink Armenian coffee. He doesn't want to speak the language. He doesn't want to go to Armenian events. He just completely wipes it all. And unfortunately,
and the family
wife
goes with that quite a bit. So then when she comes home at however old she was with this blonde-haired, blue-eyed jock who's like gonna be a tech bro lawyer someday and definitely says bro constantly. You know, he's a very specific corn-fed brand. The dad loved him.
Oh my God. And also, the way I understood this is very much I can talk shit about the people I love, but like you can't talk shit about the people I love. But she never tells Trevor that he can't talk shit about the people that I love. And I feel this so hard because I've been in this kind of situation where like I will bitch and complain about like family and stuff like that. And then somebody else, because that is how I portray it, right?
Yes.
They take it as oh, I can also do this. And they have a version of these people that is when they're at their worst. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And
okay, you're right. There are several things that Trevor does wrong. And this is coming from the partner of a first generation Chinese person, like I'm really careful to include that culture. I'm really careful, more than my own, honestly. If there's a way to be like white culture, that's not like
that was
everything.
One thing while I was reading this book. There was so much about heritage and culture and tradition and all of those things, and I was like, I don't know what I have. It made like I was nostalgic for something that I don't particularly have. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
especially coming from a family that didn't particularly have like a lot of traditions. A lot of people are like, we did this on Christmas or whatever. And I don't have a ton of that.
I don't have those. Yeah.
No.
Like, it just wasn't.
I don't even have like those cultural touchstones, really.
Yeah.
But anyway, like the other day, sometimes I'll accidentally play a country song, or like I'll get a hankering for a song that I heard as a kid or whatever. And Michael will be like, "No, it's your mom's culture coming through." And I'm like, "Is it? I don't know. I enjoy it, but are things you enjoy your culture? I don't know." So, Michael says like, "Oh, it's your mom's culture." And I question that because, I listened to country music or whatever in my teens. But before that, I was born and raised in Hawaii. And so I have a lot of Hawaiian influence on my life. But as a white person, I don't feel comfortable claiming that culture. Like I was in all of the hula classes. There's so much about Hawaiian culture and everything that have absolutely influenced my life. And I have nostalgic feelings for that, but I can't call it my culture. Yeah, as a colonizer.
I completely understand that because my stepfamily, who I met before I ever even have memories, they're Persian. Like all of them immigrated from Iran long before I was born. And so it's super, like there's a lot of tradition that I did with that family growing up. Right. My favorite comfort food is gorma sabzi, which is a Persian stew that I make, semi-regularly just because it reminds me of that. And I've heard family stories and like tradition and all of those things. But again, as a white person myself, I'm not Persian. It's not my heritage. It's influenced me intensely, but it's not mine. So this was a very interesting book to read just with that personal history, especially because, like they're talking about areas like I have stories about because of my family. It was just a very interesting book, right? Coming from those kind of places. Yeah. But so they're at this fucking beer garden, which she is blindsided basically because he's there and he's like, tonight's a big, big night. And she's like, 'cause you're going to Germany for 3 weeks tomorrow. And he's like, well, I mean,
among other things. Meanwhile, we've got woo girls in the background. People are doing shots. Like everybody, this place is nutter butters. She's looking at the deer heads on the wall at one point. She's like, maybe he bought a deer head and that's a thing that was celebratory.
Don't worry. They bring out a bottle of champagne corked in 2010. Very importantly, we find out later. And she's like, what is happening? And then this motherfucker gets up and has to like body slam people out of the way to get on his knee in front of her. And then he pulls out a ring box and opens up a box. And inside is a ring with a jewel the size of Jupiter. Like 3 months salary kind of ring.
Right.
Yeah, he's a patent lawyer specifically.
took it way too seriously, that 3-month rule.
And then he turns around and like waves somebody over, and who walks over with a full news crew but her work nemesis, Mark?
Because she's a reporter.
Yeah, and she straight up passes the fuck out.
She faints. Thank goodness.
Yeah, because she doesn't say yes or no. She just passes out. She faints. Melody, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if I get married, cool, but, like, that's not something that I'm, like, gunning for. I never have been, right? If I ever do fucking get married, or somebody ever, I'm in a relationship where somebody's going to propose to me, I'm gonna start dating somebody and direct them to this episode at minute 20 whatever. This is a message to you. This is a message to you. If you fucking propose to me in public and we have not discussed marriage, I don't give a shit if I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I'm saying no to your face.
Yeah. Oof. And there was this beautiful moment in this book, right as she's on the precipice of like, what the fuck do I do? Where she catches eyes with one of those deer heads again. And if you have the quote, let me know. But it's like, she's like, I thought about that deer and how lucky it was. Like, it didn't have any responsibilities. It didn't have any decisions to make anymore. Like, she would rather be that hunted, dead animal on the wall than contemplate marrying this man. You should not marry him.
She specifically says, the antlered dead deer face stares at me, and I wish I were suspended above everything like him. No more decisions, no more failures, no more disappointing people, no more. And then she faints.
Babe.
So she comes to, and Mark is laughing hysterically because Mark is a fucking douche bro. And then
oh my God.
Trevor is like, oh my God, babe, are you okay? And she's like, we're fucking leaving. So they walk out and he's following her and he's like, oh my gosh, is everything okay? And she's like, she gets to the car and she's like, get in the car. He gets in the car. She gets in the car. And he's like, oh man, that was like so romantic. And she was like, are you nuts?
Were you at the same scene
I was? What do you mean this was romantic? She's like, why did you do this right before you leave for 3 weeks? And he's like, because like I thought it'd be romantic because, you know, we'd have this time separated and like it makes the heart grows fonder. And she she's staring dead ahead and she says to him, maybe it's good you're going to be gone for a month. And she's like, I need this next couple of weeks to think about our relationship and about us and what this looks like. And he's like, what do you mean? And she's like, I think we need to take a break. And he's like, what? 3 weeks is not a break. 3 weeks is a breakup. And she's like, no, it's a break where we're separated. We can think separately kind of thing. Which I agree with. Anytime I've ever taken a break, 1 week is not enough. I don't do breaks for less than a week if I'm in a relationship because like
sure, I've never done a break because by the time I'm done with people, I'm done with them and I can't. I get the ick.
Well, don't worry. Probably part of the reason I don't do less than a week is because I am also like a break. This is terrible, but historically for me, a break has been the lead up to me getting up the guts to break up with you.
Yeah, and like, it's one of those moments where I'm like, this is your answer. And I know that it's a hard decision, but it's a really easy logical progression. If you would rather be a mounted deer head than marry this man, don't marry him.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not necessarily going to say that. I feel like every relationship, whether or not it was the end of the relationship, before I was like done with that person, I've definitely had deer head moments, you know?
Sure, you have deer head moments in life, right?
No, a deer head moment with the relationship where I'm like, I would rather just not have to make any of these decisions. And then we work through it, right? Like that's like the low end. Oh my God. And I love the people in my life, but when a friend comes to me, and I've done this myself, right? But like if Nare was one of my friends and came to me and was like, I knew what was going on in her head, which right now she's like, well, maybe we're like not compatible, but like it's been so easy. And like basically like thoughts about like they've just been coasting and she's with him because it's easy. And like they've been together for ma'am, that is sunk cost fallacy.
Yes. Yes.
Just because you have put 4.5 years into this dude does not mean you need to put the next 45. Like, you don't marry somebody because and you know what? That's not true. Some people, that is what they want. And you know what? If that's the case, that's fine. If you want to be in a relationship with somebody that is not firework, that's not like whatever, that isn't at all explosive, and it's just easy, that is totally your prerogative. Nere is not this person. Like,
that's not what she wants.
No, she wants something that is a little bit explosive and like makes her feel and blah, blah, blah. That's totally fine. But
well,
like,
and she also wants a person who honors her and her family, and she hasn't made that clear to him, but like I was really offended as a person in an interracial, intercultural relationship, as the white person in it, when she was like, did you talk to my mom about this? And he specifically says, no, I didn't want your mom to get in the way of this beautiful union. Mm-hmm. And he talks about them like, you know, your super loud relatives,
obnoxious family, like
I was just like, no, you shouldn't be together, because
this falls under the whole thing.
You don't even know you're being disrespectful, and that's bananas.
This falls under the umbrella of I'm allowed to be annoyed by all of these things, but that is not your place.
Quite.
Right?
Quite.
Like,
yeah.
Oh my God. And then it turns out he got this entire proposal idea from a woman that he works with, Katie. And guess what? Katie is very obviously and very clearly in love with Trevor. And he's like, yeah, she told me that this would, and Nere is legit looks at him and is like, because that's a proposal that she wants. I'm not Katie. Why would this proposal work? The suggestion was take her to a restaurant that is important to both of you. And yet he's the one with a beer maiden fetish who's obsessed with German culture and like German everything. And she can't even like say and barely remembers the name of this restaurant. She calls it the Dick Grabber restaurant because she can't say Dickengräber. And like and I probably butchered that a little bit because it's been years since I spoke German regularly. But
Sure.
Like, she doesn't, in what world? Like, you haven't even discussed marriage and you're just popping in out of nowhere. You're like, hey girl, like, we're going to the fucking frat house. Like, because, oh my God. Because, like, that's not every German restaurant. Let me tell you. I've been to, like, this one specifically, I know exactly.
I've been to this restaurant.
I've been to this restaurant. If you're ever in Little Rock, no, not Little Rock, Hot Springs, there is a German restaurant, and it is so wonderful. It's like hidden away a little bit, and the food is great, and it's such a relaxed atmosphere. It feels like you're in like a medieval castle, and it's like it is incredible. That's not this place. That's a place you propose in, not this place. Not Dick Grabber, okay?
Not
Like,
the Dave and Buster's of German restaurants.
God. And then it's exactly what you said earlier. He is pissed off. He pops that champagne because he brought the champagne with him. And the reason it's a 2010 bottle of champagne is because that's the year they started dating, which objectively, that is very cute.
That's sweet. Like,
well, and that's the thing
Trevor's
that kills
not
me.
a bad guy. He's just culturally insensitive and a bro and like not her taste and not my taste, and I don't want to hang out with him, you know?
Yeah.
But objectively, like, not a terrible person.
Well, and that's the thing.
Probably.
Is, like, he is.
No, he probably is, because he probably has no idea about his privilege. He probably is one of those guys that's like, I've worked just as hard as everybody else or whatever. It's fine. I'm speculating on Trevor now, and I shouldn't.
We spent so much time on Trevor, and he is such a minuscule part of this book.
I know.
But like, I feel like it's important though, because this is what she's coming out of and into, right? So he does the whole thing. He starts drinking the champagne and thing, and he basically he puts the ring on her finger, and they hug awkwardly over the console. And like, I've been in this exact situation minus the ring, right?
Yeah.
And they hug awkwardly over the console, and then he opens the champagne, gets out of the car, and is like, "You can't break up with me because I'm breaking up with you for a month anyway. By the way, the champagne is amazing and you're missing out." And then he just leaves. And she's like, what do I do with this ring? I have like a $10,000 ring on my finger right now. And
you give it back to him immediately.
You shouldn't have let him put the ring on you in the first place. Nade.
Yeah.
Like, that's not.
Oh my God, this poor woman. She has no idea what she wants or needs or anything. Like,
She's somebody who is. Safety nets are no longer a safety net. They are instead a web that she cannot escape from.
Oh, shit. Yeah. And she knows what she wants career-wise. She knows what she wants in a lot of different ways. But, like, especially romantically, she's a lost lamb.
Well, and even knowing what she wants career-wise, we learn that that's also a safety net that became a web. Like, she is stuck.
That's true.
Like, every single thing in her life that is a safety net, she is entangled in and cannot escape without bringing a fucking knife. Like, so her her best friend / cousin, Diana, is getting married. And so it's the next day, and she's at this bridal shower, helping set everything up for the bridal shower because she's maid of honor. And
yes,
her mother is fussing her, like, why are you being so distracted, blah, blah, blah. And she finally tells her mom that Trevor proposed the night before. And her mom is like, what? What do you mean he proposed? Why did you not tell me? And she's like, yeah, well, I mean, I said no, essentially. And it's like, Nutty, you did not say no.
You didn't, though. And like, why don't you just tell your mom that you're thinking about it and you're on a break? Like, this is the thing. She tells different stories to different people, and none of them are precisely true. No. And for me, in my reader brain, I saw no logical reason for any of it. You know? Like, there was no net benefit to really telling her mom, like, no, I'm done with him forever, when that's not super the truth. In fact, it just gets more put on her because her mom's like, ooh, then maybe you can start dating men that I like more or whatever, you know?
Well, and she starts wondering if because her mom's delighted that she didn't go with Trevor, like that she didn't say yes. And turns out, like, she starts to wonder if, like, what if my mom's passive aggressive feelings towards Trevor have infected me? And that's part of the reason I didn't say yes last night. And it's like, Nar, I'm going to need you to take some, what's the word I'm looking for? Like,
accountability?
Yes. Like, guess what?
Yeah, personal responsibility.
It is okay if you spent 5 years with somebody that you realize you don't actually like.
Yeah.
And also, guess what? 5 years is long enough that you grow apart. Like,
right.
Again, it's the sunk cost fallacy when it comes to relationships and things like that. Just because you and a partner break up, or even you and a friendship break up, but like right now we're talking about romantic relationships, does not mean it was a waste of 5 years of your life.
Yes.
Like, there are people who suit you for a specific time in your life that no longer suit the life you and who you are now. They do not serve your happiness.
And that doesn't make it a failed relationship at all.
No. If anything, I would argue that an incredibly successful relationship is one that ends because you're both in different places and it no longer works, but you were there for each other and it was good when you needed each other. But Nade does not feel that way.
No. And so her mom says, oh, this is an extra reason for you to do the Explore Armenia events that I've been asking you to do for, you know, the lead up to this big thing. Because it's a month-long series of events that happens every 3 years. And it's all about making sure that the younger generations are still connected to Armenian culture. So they've got everything from like cooking classes to dance lessons to lectures on the Armenian genocide, which I knew nothing about, and like a bunch of stuff. And but she's saying specifically, you can go there and I will give you a short list of dudes and you can see whether or not you're interested in them. And maybe you want to, because she said, oh my God, this line hit me so hard because she's thinking through like what she wants to do. And right before she makes this decision, she says she wants to give herself a chance to not mute my culture for the rest of my life.
And then she also thinks to herself, I can't help but think the branch of Armenianness would be snapped off with any children I had with Trevor.
And it would.
Oh, absolutely.
It would.
She would be living her father's best dream if she married Trevor.
Sure. Yeah. And like, it's hard, even though one of my biggest parenting priorities is making sure that we incorporate Chinese and Taiwanese culture and that they speak Mandarin and all that kind of thing, because I can't speak Mandarin, you know? So regardless of anything else, English is still going to be the first language in the house, even if we go out of our way, and we do, to make sure that other people are constantly around them speaking Chinese. Like, if she was with Trevor, there's no fucking way.
No,
there's no
absolutely
fucking way.
not. I almost blew my fucking top right through the goddamn roof when she was talking about how this, and this is right before she is talking about how if she married Trevor, their children would have no interaction with her Armenian heritage.
Yeah.
Apparently one time she was talking to Diana on the phone, and Trevor jokingly told her to stop talking that devil language. I could have crawled into this book, because that is a level beyond joking about, because she talks about her family a certain way, he talks about her family a certain way. That's just straight racism. Like,
that's egregious.
That is, sir.
Hilarious joke, Trevor. Great job. Like, what? What the fuck?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So anyway, she tells her mom, like, what would you think if I like tried to date Armenian men again? And her mom like lights up like a Christmas tree, basically. Because ever since her husband died, the dad died 2 years ago because he got drunk and drove.
Oh my
Terrible.
God.
Like, such a fucking tragedy. But since then, the mom has been really cloistered as a widow.
It sounds like she's basically retired and living a half life until Nere has kids. That's going to be her excuse to come back to life.
Yeah,
is when she has grandchildren to dote on, and that just that's so
her
sad.
grief has been consuming. Yeah. And so Nare is really excited about seeing if she can get her mom out to more like casual hangs with friends and events like the banquet that's at the end of this thing and stuff like that. So she decides that she's going to jump in and she's going to go to the dance lesson that's tonight. There's like this dance event.
Hang on. This is not a dance lesson. You are fully expected to come to this knowing how to do Armenian line dances. And she states that the only one she can do is the one they teach preschoolers, because it's the only dance that like works with their wibbly wobbly limbs and like uncoordination. And I was like...
You're right.
I could picture it so well in my head.
Yeah.
And like, oh my God, I love line dancing. Granted, like
I do too.
Oh boy.
It doesn't matter what kind of line dancing.
Yeah, I want to learn how to do it. If there's a line dance happen, I don't care where I am. If I'm there, I want to be doing it. I'm going to suck at it because I don't know the line dance, but I'm going to follow your feet as best I can and like, let's go. Let's do it.
When I was doing West Coast Swing all the time, there were some dance competition events that had like combo events. And so there would be a West Coast Swing section and a line dancing section. And I would bop in between the two.
Not know you're a West Coast Swing girly.
You do know that. We've had this discussion before. I'm almost certain of it. Yeah, there was a good, like, 5 years of my life when, like, every single weekend I was at some sort of West Coast Swing social dance.
Love swing dancing.
Yeah, I love West Coast Swing specifically. I don't love East Coast Swing as much, but yeah.
I just love any. Like, all of this falls under partner dancing. I just love partner dancing.
I love it. I love it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So she makes her mom's life even more because she's like, I'm going to have to hit up the phone tree and find out who's going to be attending and who's single and blah, blah. And she's like, Mom, let's go look at the Facebook event. And her mom, this is like a goddamn buffet. She is delighted. So she comes up with a list of all of the eligible Armenian men who have good pedigree, good jobs, good prospects. Like, she has a list, and we find out later her mom is a woman after my own heart, because she makes a fucking Excel spreadsheet with like a bazillion columns of all of these things. And it is obsessive and
beautiful,
hyper-focused. And
she's also a math teacher.
Fantastic. Oh my God. I know. Honestly, like,
I know.
Her mom a little bit stole the show for me. Like, for all of her mother's faults, like, I
See, her grandmother stole the show for me.
No,
but
hang on, because as they're walking down the steps, or she's walking down the steps, and she is about to leave for this thing, her mom is like, why are you wearing those flats? You can't wear flats to this thing. You're like already tiny, because she's like 5'2". She's like, you're short. Like, this is not good. You have to wear heels. And her grandmother says in perfect proper Armenian, if you send your child on an errand, go with them. Which is such a sick burn that I didn't even get offended. Her grandmother is perfection. A lot of my quotes are her grandmother.
Queen of sick burns. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So she gets there and she's got like her high heels in the car, like in the seat next to her, being like, I might put them on or I might not. But then she starts just having an existential meltdown in the front seat, being like, and this was so relatable to me.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's like, I have to go into this event and like, I've met people just enough that I should probably know their names, but I absolutely don't. And it's more awkward than just not knowing anyone. Like, do I know them enough to go say hello? Or like, am I not supposed to do that? That level of knowing people is such a fraught situation for me.
This is one of my least favorite facts about the fact that I'm moving back to someplace I used to live after 7 years away.
Yeah.
Because, like, where I'm moving, it is big enough that I'm not going to randomly see them necessarily, but it's also small enough that I will definitely be randomly seeing people that I know from my past. And I should know who they are. We're Facebook friends. But, like, I'm going to be like, I don't know how I know you. And my worst nightmare is going to be that I know them because of being, like, a drunk 21-year-old hot mess.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be like, and that, like, I'm going to have forgotten that we had a really awkward experience or something like that. And so, like.
Oh my God, just like when Ember was like 2, I feel like we went to a party and this lady came up to me and she started having she knew who I was. She knew when I left Seton Hall. She talked about a class that we had together, and I would have told anybody, I would have sworn on anything. I had never seen that person in my entire life. I had no idea.
One of my least favorite things in the entire world is finding out that somebody who was an extra in my life, I am a main character in theirs. I fucking hate it because they know so much about me. And I'm like, clearly we know each other well for you to know these specific things about me.
Yeah.
And
I'm so sorry. Trying to figure out open-ended enough questions to like, try to figure out who they are, but also make it clear that I certainly, absolutely, definitely remember them just like they remember me.
And the worst, because this has happened to me.
I just feel so bad.
The worst is when you ask like what is supposed to be a safe, innocuous question. Oh
my God.
Like for example, I won't go into detail because if that person listened to this episode, they would know exactly who I'm talking about.
Okay.
But it's like asking, how's the family? And then you find out that you should have already known because they told you that their literally every single blood relative that they have died in a fiery plane crash 15 years ago. And you're like, they're like, still dead. Still dead. And I'm like,
I hate it so much. So, anyway, that's where she's at right now. And thankfully, this woman pops her head into the passenger window area and is like, hey, are you okay? And Nade has like the guts to be like, sort of no. I don't know anybody here. Like I'm feeling really awkward about this. And the woman ends up being Yerebuni, and she says like, come in with me. I've got friends in there and you can hang with us. And it's so sweet.
Oh, I love it. And it made me so happy because in this exact situation, I've both been Nade and Yerebuni. And it just, I love seeing things like that. Like, oh, the goodness of humans. So they get inside and they stop by the bar and she straight up gets a shot and downs that puppy. And I was like, damn, girl. Okay, let's fucking go. Yeah. I get it though. Social lubrication. We've all been there. And she can't help but think right now, she's like, if my dad had been alive, this situation would be very different. I would not be doing this explore Armenia thing to find new men after Trevor. I would definitely have been hooked up with my dad's like frat finance buddy's son.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And like that, like we won't harp on it too much but an overwhelming theme in this entire book is her struggle with loving her father and having all of this history with him, but also realizing how deeply he fucked them over in a lot of ways. And this anger that is just, she's not ever going to have closure on. It's going to be something that she just has to deal with herself, which that it's rough.
And one of the things I really related with in this scene in particular with her relationship with her father is like she looks at the bar and they're serving Johnny Walker. And she has this, memory of Johnny Walker being a really important liquor to her dad and like how proud he was to like be able to serve it and stuff. And so she goes and she gets a shot of Johnny Walker. And specifically with alcohol and alcoholism, like I have those memories where on the one hand, it's like a fuzzy, beautiful memory that specifically involves a particular alcohol. And then there's also all of this fraught emotion caught up in it because, her dad died by drunk driving. My dad died from liver cirrhosis, And so it's that constant like push and pull.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like whether or not the person is dead, you can have these fond memories from life and like fond memories of you and them specifically that when you dig a little deeper and you think about how it affects all of your lives as a whole, it's a very different thing from that specific point or points in time that memory is attached to.
Right.
And like similarly, I have a lot of those with people in my life that are alcohol related. Like there are certain alcohols that I cannot look at without thinking of a specific person.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was this book took me a little while to read because I kept having to pause because it's so beautifully written and it's so heavy. And it's not even heavy, like it is heavy on the things that you would expect it to be heavy about, right? Like the Armenian genocide is not something to take lightly. And racism and sexism. This book deals with a lot of really heavy things, but there are other things that really, if you're the type of person who has history with any of the stuff that she's dealing with, you might need to take a second to put it down and think. And Taleen Voskuni handles it beautifully. Like it's done very, very well.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, it doesn't feel heavy-handed, that's my biggest issue with a lot of books that are in the realm of this style of book. A lot of it feels so heavy-handed. And I'm like, I don't need you to shove it in my face that you want me to be thinking about blah, blah, blah. Right? Like, that's not necessary.
Yeah. I'll connect the themes. I promise.
So then Ida goes and introduces her to her friends. And while she gets introduced, she is like, oh my God, I love the way that she says my name. And it's like I'm settled into a boat flowing down a tributary. And like she's already like, she doesn't admit this for a long time in the book, but she is already
gone.
Yeah, she's well on her way to like heavy crush. Because we didn't mention this, but we find out when she's talking to her mom and she's like, yes, I'm open to meeting Armenian men. This is when we find out that Nare is bisexual and has always known that she's bisexual. And oh my God, this was wonderful as well because this is so common for people who are not exclusively heterosexual or homosexual, right? They're not one end of the spectrum. The erasure, like bisexual erasure is also a heavy theme in this book because she's like, well, I've always been with a man. So like, does it matter that I'm bisexual? And like, I bet I thought about you because you and I talked about that both personally and on pod before about like, you're still queer.
Yeah, but I'm not queer presenting.
And that's okay. Oh God, it was wonderful.
Well, and a lot of times I have the sort of question. I mean, granted, I have this hilariously as a person who has a podcast. I often have the question, especially on social media, like, should I add my voice to this? Like, does it matter or like, does it detract? You know what I mean? And around things like sexuality, I have had moments where I'm like, but does it matter? You know, like, should I quote unquote come out as bisexual and like make it public when, you know, the rest of my life looks heterosexual? Is that just for me, or is that for somebody else? Like, what purpose does it serve? You know, and I feel like Nare has that thought quite a bit. And in her case, there's also an added layer of knowing that her family might have a hard time coming to terms with it.
Yeah, and it's not even just her family, it's the community as a whole.
Yeah.
And like how the community as a whole it's not going to just affect her coming out, it's going to affect her family too, in a way that it wouldn't necessarily, or it would affect them less depending on the communities that your family are a part of, right?
Right.
So,
yeah,
by the
community
way,
standards.
I'm just going to come out and just let you know, Mel, that as somebody who is not either specific, like I'm not at either end of the spectrum as far as sexuality is concerned, and I'm very queer presenting. I personally, I know not every queer person agrees with that because there's still a lot of biphobic assholes out there, but I think it's super important for straight presenting queer people to have their voice heard. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that you can have a well-rounded understanding of the queer community without acknowledging those people. I get so, especially Pride Month just ended, and like the amount of people that are like, straight people shouldn't be allowed at Pride. I could gut every single one of those people and feel no remorse. Because you don't know if that straight couple that comes to Pride, you don't know that either of them are straight. And also, on top of that, I love my straight ally friends. You're fucking fantastic. Come to Pride with me. Like, oh, I could, you know, moving on. There's so many
conversation
rants
for a different day.
There are so many rants that you and I knew that reading this book, when I was reading, I was like, Mel and I are going to have to like stay on point.
Yeah.
Boy, we got a motor.
So as they're at this dance event, she's like so impressed with Yerebuni, partially because the dancing is so natural seeming to her. And like at one point they have to link pinkies, and it is like a cosmic touch, and she's trying to keep it together. And then as they're sitting at the table, they're talking about the different events that are coming up in Explore Armenia. And she says that she doesn't think she probably won't go to the lectures on the Armenia genocide because it's just like, ugh, it's like so tough.
My heart dropped out of my asshole in this scene. You don't know any of these people. Oh my God. So her family is very much of the belief that like the genocide happened, but we need to move on and like accept that it happened, but like not let it affect us as we are today. And so she straight up is like, yeah, I'm not going into that serious stuff, like any of the serious things, because like the genocide happened, but it's been like 100 years.
I feel like we talk about it all the time.
And like Yerebuni has such a fantastic response because so she actually works for the Genocide Education Foundation, I think is what it's called.
Right.
But she's on the board for Explore Armenia. And so she puts in the nicest way possible. She puts Nare in her place and is like, I understand that you have fatigue discussing this.
Yeah.
But, and that's so real about any hard thing, right? Lord knows there's things that I just no longer want to talk about because it's all people want to talk about. And she's like, I understand that you have fatigue, but it does not mean it is any less important to discuss because it is still affecting us to this day. And Nare is like, she just can't see that, right? She does end up seeing it later in the book. And that's kind of her wake-up call of, oh, this isn't in the past. This is now, too.
Right.
But like Yerebuni does it so masterfully. I wish I could have 1 ounce of the class that Yerebuni has when talking about difficult subjects like that kind of thing.
I know. Yeah, and so she feels like a turd under a shoe. Oh, she feels terrible.
I have been here and like I was thrown immediately back into those memories and I was like,
it's awful.
okay, I'm never leaving my house again. I'm never talking to another human being.
Yep. And so she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, yeah, of course it's still important. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Mm-hmm. And Yerebuni's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Just like think about it before the event and see if you change your mind.
Mm-hmm. So they end up exchanging cell phone numbers so that they can text and Instagram handles because Nare has a very, very well-known Insta. She has like 30,000 followers or something like that. And because she's a TV personality. Yeah. Right? She's an anchor. Nope. She's a reporter, not an anchor.
Yes, she's a reporter. She just feels like really, really bubbly and excited. And at this point, she still can't tell whether it's like a friendship thing or if it's a full-blown romantic crush. And she does the thing that a lot of bi women especially do, and I'm sure I've done it in the past, is be like, oh my gosh, I've got a full-blown girl crush. Mm-hmm. As if that's a different thing. Like we don't say man crush, do we? Mm-mm. No, we do not.
Or boy crush, which is the alternative to girl crush, which
oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Ew, yuck.
This is so funny though. I just have to comment on this because
please.
Nare is such a hot mess as a human. At one point, she's like talking to Yerebuni, and she's like, What is your perfume? Like, it smells so good. And then, like, to make it less weird because she felt a little creepy, to make it less weird, she says, I like smells.
I'm into smells.
I was like, not a no.
And later on, it's really sweet because, like, this just shows who Yerebuni is. Because at some point later on, they're hanging out at her house. And she's like, oh, yeah, so since you're into smells, like, what kind of smells do you like the most? And I was just like, oh.
Oh, my God. And I felt so seen because Nare's response is, like, I like your perfume, but also I like smells that feel blue. Like, the color light blue. And same, because, like, clean linen, fresh air, like all of those kinds of that's how I took it based on how she described it. And like I feel that way too. I love that shit. If I get in somebody's car and it smells like new car, or they have like a fresh linen thingamabob, or like fresh breeze or something like that, I'm like, are we getting married now? Where's my where's my champagne from 2010? It's time for us to like come on, let's go. So anyway, it is the next morning, and her mom and Diana, they end up driving her back to her car and just interrogate her about all of the men that she met the night before. And she's like, I didn't like any of them. Like, Arek is not an option. Vache is not an option. Those are Yerebuni's two friends. There's also Jeanette, who is, she and Arek have to get together, right? They
have to.
Forever.
Have to. He's in love with her so much.
He's so in love with her.
He's gaga for her.
I would read that book so hard because he's like he's like the stereotypical like cool, smooth talking, cares a lot. He's very like vain in a non-narcissistic way, and like just like kind of a cool guy. And Jeanette is so buttoned up and proper. And she's sophisticated. I would eat up that book. So she is talking about all these men that she wouldn't work. But then in her head, she's like, but like, there's also Yerebuni. And like, I know that she's not a prospect, so I can't like bring that up. But like, I've already met the love of my life.
Oh, actually, we forgot at the night before, she accidentally spilled a drink on like the hottest guy there.
Number
who's, like,
one for her mom.
Hot. Yeah, he's also a doctor. Right.
His parents he's got a good pedigree. He makes a lot of money. He's super hot.
She spills this drink like on his lap, and then to make it better again, she's always trying to make things better. Nare, she like gets down on her knees and like is trying to help him clean it up, and he says, "Oh wow, what like who have I pleased to have a beautiful woman on her knees in front of me?" No?
Not beautiful. He says, what did I do to deserve a hot woman kneeling at my feet? Because that is a very different statement than what you just said.
Way different. Yeah. And I was trying to be sleazy. It didn't work.
He immediate sleazes. Like, he's slimy. Yeah. So, and they end up exchanging DMs, and he's like, I'll see you in there. I like it when you post, like, it's fine when you post lattes, but like, those selfies. And she's like, well, maybe you'll get more of those. And she gets a little flirty. And he's like, and I'm like, oh, God.
But it's also a little bit lackluster because the only person she can think about is Yerebuni.
Yeah.
So then I think we go to an Armenian brandy tasting.
Not yet. So she's a reporter and she is stuck on news fluff pieces. And like when I say fluff pieces, I mean shit like local community is pissed off there's too much goose poop. Small child gets a letter from a English duchess's maid. Like,
Pug celebrates 16th birthday.
Yeah. And so she tries to pitch a story to her douchebag, sexist, racist boss, Richard, about this Armenian cooking class. And she's like, this would be really great. Let's go ahead and, like, maybe we can check that out. Because she also pitched a political story and he immediately gave it to work nemesis Mark. Richard, suck a fuck. So, I hate him. Her boss is like, nobody gives a shit about Armenian anything. So, like, you don't need to do that cooking class thing. Nobody's going to care. And she's like, yeah, but, like, cooking...
People love cooking stuff.
And he's like, yeah, but it's Armenian. They like tacos. White millennials who we're aimed at like tacos, not kufta. He doesn't say kufta. But, like...
He doesn't. He has no idea what that is.
No. And she is like, oh my God, it just made me so angry. Everything about her boss made me so fucking angry, which was the intention. Then we get this scene and like, what a mood. She walks into the Armenian school, which is where the cooking class is being hosted. This is like a day or two later. And while she's walking in, she thinks to herself, I've almost never been inside the kitchens, and it feels like I'm sneaking into a restricted area. If only my pre-K self being served hot lunches could see me now. Shit. And like, mood. Walking in someplace and then going someplace where you were never allowed as a youth or a child, you're like, oh my God, I feel like, am I like...
I've got backstage passes.
Am I the queen?
Yeah. Well, and she has decided that she's still going to do the story against her boss's wishes because he doesn't pay attention to the website at all. So she's going to do the story and put it on the website so that people can still see it, but like it's not going to be in the, like, you know, on the TV or in the paper or whatever. I don't know.
She's a little rebel.
Yeah. So as she's doing all of this, she ends up interviewing Yerebuni and another person, and then there's this other lady who organized the cooking event. Kiki. And Kiki's the worst, but she's just so impressed by how Yerebuni frames things and how she thinks about the way that their culture and staying connected to their culture impacts them today. And yeah, it's really cool. And she does a great job getting interviews from everyone. Later on, Yerebuni's going to be very impressed with her interviewing skills.
By the way, very importantly, this was just very important to me. When she first sees Yerebuni, she does comment to herself in her head, there's a moon ring on her index finger, and with her other hand, she pinches the moon and twists the ring all the way around and back. I want to be that moon. Then I immediately tell myself to dial it back. And I was like, horny. That is extremely horny.
Yeah.
You've
got a big crush is what you've got. Jeez Louise.
By the way, the food descriptions in this book killed me. I want Mutabel so bad. It is apparently a spicy, smoky eggplant dip. And guess what? Because I fucking love eggplant, I am looking up a fucking recipe for this, and I'm making it after I move because it sounded fucking incredible. Listener, if any of you have a recipe that you love that is Mutabel, and it is a spicy, smoky eggplant dip, Armenian in origin, hit us up. I want to make it. Yeah. Holy fuck. So anyway, I was so hungry reading this book, which was not the point of this book. This is not a cooking-based book, but like, oh my God, everything sounded so good. And then we get confirmation that Yerebuni is not straight because Nade walks up to her and I think she was talking to Edek about some ex of hers that was a woman. And Nade is wishing she could be chill right now, but she is like in her head.
She can't do it.
Yeah, she's so excited. She's like, oh my God, Irabuni's not straight. I have a chance. And it's like, man.
And she's starting to like try and figure out how to signal that she is also not straight without being the weirdest person in the world. And it's very relatable.
Yeah. And then she does it in the least weird way possible by going up and helping her cook. And she's like, so Pride's this month. And I was like, oh God. Nade, what are you doing?
Come on.
Then Rafi walks in, the sleazeball from the couple of nights before, and she's
the doctor, yeah.
Fuck, what do I do? So she like escapes to go to the bathroom, and in her head, she's thinking to herself, this was freaking beautiful. Bathroom, be back. I hope she won't volunteer to come with me, though I do a teeny bit hope she'll come with me, and I'll scoop her face in my hands and kiss her right on the mouth. Ooh, I love a bathroom tryst. And I was like, Nade, you are all over the map right now. And I feel very, very seen. But then Rafi like catches up with her and asks her out on a date.
He says, hey, reporter girl.
What?
And then asks her out on a date. And then can't understand that she's saying no until she tells him she's engaged full on.
And gross, he specifically says, we should go on a date. I bet an old-fashioned girl like you needs a date. Oh. Well, now we know where Rafi's coming from. Rafi's looking for a hole to stick it in, frankly.
He's a fuckboy. Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, like you just said, he basically doesn't accept her no. She doesn't even say like, no because she knows he's not going. Mm-hmm. She's like,
have you seen all this?
I'm engaged to somebody. He's in Germany right now, ma'am.
As if this isn't a micro community where everybody talks to everybody, and Yerubuni's friend group is definitely at some point going to hear that she claimed to be engaged. Like,
yeah, I thought that's where this was going, and then
right.
It doesn't actually come back that way. So she makes a quick escape from him. He's out of the picture now, and she gets back to the room, and she's feeling kind of ill. And so she's like, I gotta go. Time for me to skedaddle. And Irabuni helps her pack up her tripod and take it out to her car and all of those things. And as she's driving away, when she looks in the mirror, she can see Irabuni like watching longingly as her car drives away. And she's like, oh my God.
Is she feeling what I'm feeling? Is she feeling it? Oh my God.
Then, really quickly, we do have a beautiful moment where we find out that Nene has not cooked since her husband died, because she's like, I served that man and my children for 50 years and I'm not doing it anymore. And so she has not even done so much as cook a hard-boiled egg.
Yes. And good for her. She used to be like a concert pianist. And so all she does is listen to classical music and read Proust in the original French. Thank you so much, everyone. And like, Nene is such a tragic figure and yet still so badass.
The more we learn about her, the more I just wanted to like die.
Same. Same.
She's very much of the generation where it's like, I didn't get to marry the person I loved because I was expected to marry this other person. And I lived my whole life married to that person. And honestly, it was a relief that they're dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I can finally live my life.
Yes.
Now that the person my family chose is no longer in charge of it. Oh, God.
Okay, so now we've got a brandy tasting, and so she's going over to that lady Kiki's house, and Kiki is too rich for life, and oh man, this was the other thing. We kept on mentally walking into these spaces where I was just like feeling so cloistered and yuck, and like I can't touch anything, and it's too fancy, and why is it gilded?
Speaking of cloistered, she ends up getting chatted up by a priest.
Oh, that's right.
And ends up with like essentially a marital fitness interview that she very drastically fails by this dude before she even realizes it's happening. And so
it's
like
so funny.
He's off the list. It was hilarious though when her mom was talking about all of this though, because her mom specifically right before she goes, so Nade looks at her mom and is like, me? A priest? And
married
like
to a priest?
I thought you wanted kids. And her mom says, ugh, He's not a celibate priest. This kind gets married, and I hear he's looking for a wife. And she says, are you serious? Mom, do you expect me, your daughter who art not heavenly at all, who got kicked out of Sunday school for insisting about dinosaurs and evolution, to be a priest's wife and live at the church? It'd be so hypocritical. And her mom says, things are different now with the church, more modern. Besides, he's very well educated, and his mom's a caterer. You'd never have to lift a finger and have all the kuftas and sarmas you want. And she literally thinks to herself, maybe worth it?
Yeah.
But then she fails this.
Might be worth
it. Which, like, mood. That's a mood.
Yeah.
But she totally fails his interview, and she's like, well, another one bites the dust.
Oopsies. And she walks in, and she sees Yerebuni in this long-sleeved red silk, maybe blouse.
And a leather jacket.
Called to me. And
I could see you in that shirt.
Right? I know.
That's a very, you're right. That is a melody-coded shirt.
So she goes up the stairs to, like, hang out with Yerebuni, and they're like immediately closer than friends would be. They're immediately, like, just chatting about all the things. And then she finally tells Yerebuni that, like, she told her mom that she would vet a bunch of Armenian dudes to, like, maybe date. And Yerebuni's like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess I could help you with that. You know, I like, who are they? Let me know and I'll point you to them or whatever. And so she starts taking her over to the dudes without any context whatsoever. She's just like, oh, yeah, I know them. And she's like, oh, I guess she's wanting me to figure this out for myself. And
she meets the realtor. And he is egotistical and won't let her get a word in edgewise. And he has very strong opinions about how Armenian brandy needs to be marketed to the masses and it needs to go to these brewers, etc. And she's like, okay. And then she crosses him off the list. And Yerebuni's like, okay, so who's the second guy? And Nade is like, this jeweler guy. And so they walk over to him and he is not into small talk. And so he
does not like to make words at other people.
Except then she does mention the dude who had feelings about Armenian brandy, and he pops right off with opinions, and they set both these boys at each other to argue for the rest of the night. And then Nade says, I could really go for some Armenian coffee. And Yerebuni says, I know the best place in town to get some. It's at my house.
It's my house.
By the way, they get in the car, and this was so fascinating to me because it had never crossed my mind that you could do this. Yerebuni has a breathalyzer in her car. I've never thought about that's just a thing you can install in your car for yourself.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
It never even crossed my mind. But it makes Nade feel so safe and relieved, and it means a lot to her. And then Yerebuni makes the coffee.
Well, they go into her house, and Yerebuni is witchy AF, okay? And her house is, like, moody and cool, and the detritus of, like, all of her hobbies are around. And one of them is carving Armenian crosses out of crystal.
Amethyst, specifically.
How I feel, yes, amethyst, but you know how I feel about a crystal.
You're a crystal girly.
I love a crystal.
By the way, so like I said, this book, the intention was not to make you I don't know, maybe it was. Taleen Voskuni, reach out if you hear this. Like, were you secretly...
Did you have ulterior motives?
Ulterior motives with this book? Have you ever had Armenian coffee? Oh my God. When they were describing making it in this scene, I was reading it at like 11 that night, and I was like...
I wants it. I needs it.
Yeah. Like... Oh my God. So Nade ends up explaining part of where her lack of
connection to her culture
comes from about her father, and how Yerebuni just in the last few weeks, which by the way, she says the last couple of weeks, it is explicitly stated several chapters from now that it has been 1.5 weeks since Trevor left. And I was like, sweetheart, that's not a couple of weeks. But in the last week and a half, she has felt more connected to her Armenian identity than she has since she was
probably
a child,
her whole life.
essentially.
Yeah.
And they are sitting on the couch with their coffees.
Yes.
And their legs, they're touching thigh to
knees
thigh.
touch.
And then Irabuni apparently is trained in reading the dregs of Armenian coffees.
Hell yeah.
And so they decide to get everything set up so that she can read it later.
Ooh.
And then they're very close to each other. And,
yeah.
And, they're looking at each other. And then...
Yeah, Booney reads the the coffee. And so at first she says like, yeah, there's like a stag and it's protection or whatever. And then she looks at the coffee again and she goes, okay, I don't want you to think I'm making this up. So look into this cup and tell me what you see. And Nare goes, I see a woman.
Specifically, in her brain, she describes the woman she sees in the dregs as a woman who looks exactly like Irabuni.
Yeah. And then, do you have that passage up? Please read it. Because they're back and forth after her seeing the woman in the coffee grounds and then before what happens next is so good.
What does a woman mean? I ask. The most I can do is look at her away from the cup, and this facing her full on is itself an invitation. Our face is already so close. She's breathing visibly now, her chest, her face widening and blooming before me. I feel her breath, soft and warm. Can I show you? My yes is flutter light, and we both lean in, her nose, then lips, silken soft and slick with gloss, mine with velvet coating. She tastes of cardamom and sea salt, and my heart, it's so big, and it's radiating energy and waves and colors all around us, pulsing with every breath we sneak through our mouths. This is how it's supposed to feel. Flying through the city, catching every green light, headed exactly where you want to go.
And not to Dick Grabber restaurant. You know what I mean? That's not the destination.
No dick grabbing. No dick grabber.
So then they make out and they start chatting about like, oh, wow, I've really wanted to do that for a long time. And then Yerabuni says, do you want to see my bedroom?
End of chapter.
This is a fade to black book. Yeah.
Yes. It's not even fade. It's a hard cut because this is the end of the chapter and the next chapter starts with them laying in bed very pleased about whatever it is that happened behind the scenes.
Whatever mysterious actions occurred.
So that fit this book's vibe, right? But I will, like when it flipped to because I was flipping to the next page and I was oh my God, I'm so fucking excited. And then it was like, we were laying there, satiated.
Breathing so hard.
Like,
ooh. It's okay. Like, I came to terms with it quickly, but I did have that moment where I was like,
when it happened, I also had, like, the initial flash of disappointment. And then literally, like, 5 seconds later, I was like, God, but that really does, like...
That was the right choice for this book.
Even a montage-y emotion based sex scene would have been out of place, I feel like. I wanted it.
Did I? Yeah, would I have said no to it? Absolutely not.
So Irabuni ends up driving her back home because it's important that she gets there safe.
She says, I'm a gentleman. I thought it was very cute.
It was very cute. And she's talking about her trips to Armenia. And this is when she asks Nare what her favorite smells are. And Irabuni asks her. And this was so interesting as content creators, which is essentially what we are.
Yes. Something I've thought about over and over again in the middle of the night. What?
Yeah. Where she asks why her Instagram is so flat when she is capable of telling such a beautiful story. I.e., her Instagram is very flat. It's very typical, like, flat white lattes, pictures of, like, flowers and, like, all of these
selfies
things.
Of beautiful Nare.
Yeah.
Like,
and but you tell such a beautiful story that means so much, like in the cooking segment that you made and things like that. And you have so many interesting thoughts and things, and you tell a great story. So why is this what you put forth for the world? Mm-hmm. And she basically says, and I think that this is something that Irabuni wouldn't understand, but like I totally got where Nare was coming from, which is this isn't what sells. Like me, the storytelling.
People didn't respond to that.
Mm-hmm. And so, but I got 30,000 followers when I switched over to the stuff that everybody wants with a couple of tricks and a couple of filters. And it was so interesting, right? Because like finding that fine line between being authentic as a content creator, but also bringing people to the you know what I mean? Like drawing people in
keeping
versus
things back for yourself as well. You know,
oh my
like
God. It's so
not
hard.
sharing everything, what you do share, what you don't share. Well, and so she says that basically to Irabuni, and we find out that
she gets defensive immediately. Like and I don't blame her.
And she says that when she started the account, she would do more personal things with like really, really long captions, and people just didn't respond to it. And so it didn't feel worth it to share, I feel like, you know?
Yeah.
And that's its own thing too, because if you put something out there that's really, really personal and people either don't respond or shit on it, like that's a different thing than posting a generic latte photo. People can respond to that or not. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then Irabuni invites her to a Wiccan bonfire to celebrate solstice. And we zippy zap because she says yes. And they are headed to the bonfire, and she was told to bring something to sacrifice. And one of the things that she's working on is she is basically in her childhood bedroom, and she's never redecorated. It is basically a shrine to her teen self and her history with her father, kind of.
She just took down a poster of the OC. And, like, that's what she's fished out of the trash, and she cut out the face of one of the actresses, and she's decided that's what she's going to sacrifice.
Uh-huh. Oh, she also gets a text message from Trevor.
Yeah.
In this
like,
moment.
I miss you.
Uh-huh. And she responds saying, I miss you too. And then he says, like, more. No, that's later. But
no, but she also says, like, it was really good to hear from you too. And like, she didn't have to say shit like that.
Yeah.
You know?
So then they have their little sacrificial moment. And essentially, for her, this represents a part of her life that she wants to grow beyond and move on. And then we have a little breakdown moment because it starts to rain. And she knows that her hair is going to fall apart. And we hear about how she is very careful to blow dry it immediately after getting out of the shower because her natural hair is considered unprofessional.
Yeah, she's gotten every single microaggression that society gives to people of color with curly hair.
Yeah. And then her hat disappears, and Irabuni she's crying. Irabuni's holding her and basically is like, I want to see Lioness Nare.
Yeah, because she says, like, no, you wouldn't like my hair. I look like a fucking lion. And yet when he's like, I think Lioness Nare would be hot. And it's sort of this moment of like, oh, I can have my hair be this style that isn't like perfectly coiffed and everybody has told me is undesirable my whole life. And this really important person wants that and embraces that and celebrates it. And it changes everything. Because also in the scene where she's walking out of the dick grabber restaurant after the proposal, she says that she left her scarf inside, and normally she would wrap her hair in her scarf between the restaurant and the car to, you know, maintain the blowout. And when she gets into the car, she has this like private mini meltdown about being proposed to, and then also having her hair start frizzing out immediately. And it's like this extra layer of emotion that she doesn't need in that moment. And it's like she's being released from that in this moment.
Yeah. So we zippy zap, and she is going to the lecture on Armenian genocide. And she's there and learning a lot already from being there. And then there's a very tense scene where some
genocide deniers, a group of genocide deniers come in and they start heckling. And they start like questioning things and saying, you know, you don't have the right to talk about this and it's not true. And they try to deal with it in a really classy manner, and they do, but it still sucks. Everything about it fucking sucks.
And the lecture is basically over. And we can't do that like discussion of that scene justice without just reading you the scene. It was so well done. And
it really was.
Afterwards, Irabuni is very upset. They're on essentially their first dinner date for steamed pork buns. And it's, again, am I hungry right now? Why am I so obsessed with talking about the food I think I'm just hungry
with the
today.
Steamed pork buns.
And she is reassuring Irabuni that you couldn't have done anything.
She handled it well. Yeah.
And Irabuni's like, no, I literally work for the Genocide Education Foundation. I should have had security. And Nada's like, you couldn't have known that was going to happen. And Ira's like, yeah, it happens
all
every
the time.
I knew that was a possibility. In fact, I knew that it was almost certain, and it
was a probability.
I didn't take precautions, and this was a wake up moment for Nare because she's like, "Oh,
she had no idea.
Oh my God! Now I'm understanding how the Armenian genocide. It's not in the past. It's still affecting people who live in that area now. It's still affecting us here in San Francisco.
Right. It's still affecting the diaspora. Like and it's very immediate even in the conversation because they're talking to each other like, no, it's you who did this, not us who did this. It's not even like your ancestors did that.
Well, and there was a quote that hit really hard, especially in the year of an election in the United States of America. And the quote was, like, not going to dig into all of this, but, like, the quote is, when denial is so wrapped up with identity, some people, usually extremists, will take any measure to protect their version of their identity.
Yeah.
And, I'm not trying to bring in this year's political stuff, but, like, it's not just politics. It's all of the heavy stuff you're not supposed to talk about with people because it's divisive. So, like, politics, religion, race, sexuality, like all of these things that you avoid, frankly, if you're trying not to start something. And I read that and I was like, oh my God, I think I want like art of that on my wall.
Right.
So now Nare, though, she's feeling really guilty because this year was like the centennial of the Armenian genocide and like Remembrance Day. And she's like, man, I really wish I wouldn't have gotten it, but I wish I'd at least pitched it. And I'm not doing enough.
Well, and she thinks specifically that she's got these two public platforms. She doesn't completely control the stories that get onto the news, but she can at least try. But then her Instagram is 30K people, and she didn't do anything there either.
Yeah. So they end up, after this, having like a high school makeout in the back of Nare's car. And the important part of this is Irabuni saying, this isn't just a hookup for me. Like, if it is for you, I understand, but like, I really like you. I want this to be more. And Nare's like, yes! Yeah!
Me too. Well, also, we forgot to tell everyone, Nare is 27 and Irabuni is 32. So a little bit older, a bit more mature.
It was wonderful. Which, like, oh my God, I love that. I love these this older relationship making out in the back of a car because like they can't go back to Narea's house because she lives with her parent or her mom and her grandmother, and I was just like, that's very cute. So a big thing that is happening in this book is in general is Explore Armenia ends with this gigantic banquet that is for all Armenian people in the community everything else is kind of aimed towards the younger set, but this is everybody. The whole family comes. It's a big event. And this year they have their local congresswoman who is trying to push through a bill that has the United States of America recognizing the Armenian genocide as something that happened legally.
Right.
And which would be huge, right?
Yeah.
Well, and part of it's because this congresswoman, I think, is a quarter Armenian. And she brings it to her boss. Irabuni gets her a exclusive interview with this congresswoman. And so she brings it to her boss, and he's like, that's awesome. Mark, you're covering it. And Nare's like, what do you mean? And he's like, you're not the right reporter for this, but there is some little girl that got a letter from a duchess's maid, and you can cover that. You're not the right. And she's like, I beg to defer. One, I'm the one who has the source. I'm the one who got the interview, and I'm your only Armenian reporter. And she wants to talk about the Armenian genocide bill
specifically.
And he says, oh, well, we don't want to talk about that. So, Mark, see if you can get her to talk about some other pre-approved topics. And oh my God. So, long story short, what ends up happening in the long run, as far as this is all concerned, she gets fired.
She finally stands up for herself.
She says,
Yeah.
He says to her, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but these are sensitive topics and you're a junior reporter. I have to vet your questions, her answers. We can't put just anything on the air. And ooh, she's in a fucking mood. And she says to him, I think you don't want me to be the face of the big story. Even though I'm the first reporter here, at least since I've been around, to get an exclusive interview with Congresswoman Grove, you don't want to air it because, one, you prefer me to be sniveling and submissive and take whatever crap story you shovel my way, and two, you refuse to see that an Armenian story has any merit, so you are both sex. And then he cuts her off, and he's like, that's enough. And he ends up firing her. And we jumped ahead a little bit, a very important part, because this actually happens the day after the banquet. But, like, she finally steps up. She's like, fuck you, dude. And,
because she brings it to him.
Yeah. So she does the same thing as the cooking thing, where she just is like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do the segment anyway.
I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to present it to him done. And then he's going to have to tell me, no, I'm not putting this perfect segment on the air.
Yep.
So she goes to the banquet to do that, and she thinks to herself, I have to be 4 different selves today. I have to be the perfect daughter who presents, the perfect image to the community. I have to be Yerabuni's girlfriend. I have to be
Yerabuni's not girlfriend.
The straight girl, yeah.
And she has to be a kick-ass reporter.
She's got a lot on her plate. And meanwhile, they've had a conversation yesterday on the phone where Nare told her that she's not out to her family. So at least she did that.
So kind about this.
Yeah, and she was like, I understand that not everybody has the same family situation that I do. So at the banquet, she's like, do I still get to meet your mom, like as your friend? And Nare's like, yeah, absolutely. And she's nervous about it. But on the whole, it's really cute. And she's the MC for this event. Yerabuni is. And they end up chatting with her mom for a little while. And Yerabuni's calling her like auntie in Armenian. What's up? Oh my God. And Nene is arguing with somebody.
So to give some context, the last guy on her mom's list is seated next to her at this banquet. And she tries to draw him into conversation. But he is a world famous violinist, and he is morose and looks mad as hell to be there. And then he and her grandmother end up in a conversation that quickly derails. And we only see glimpses of this, but it's beautiful and hilarious. Everyone's getting up to go dance in the middle. And she says to her grandmother, hey, do you want to come dance? And her grandmother looks straight ahead at Garen. No, darling, I want to sit here and wash this boy head to toe of his frivolous opinions. And her mom is like, should we like stop this? And she's like, no.
I was really happy to be here.
Nana's having the time of her life right now. Like, yeah, enjoy.
And then they have this gorgeous scene where they're out on the dance floor. Yerebuni is dancing like almost with her entire family. And she feels so complete in this moment, even though she can't tell her family exactly what's going on.
Everyone's here and we're dancing and everything's okay. My mom is out and actually having a good time, and Nene is over there by the table, laughing now, a genuine hearty laugh. Diana is shrieking with joy as her fiance does the airplane move around her. Irabuni is so damn sexy and she crushed it today. And I got an exclusive interview with a congresswoman, and everything's more than okay. I realize it's awesome.
Yeah. Oh. And she has to figure out what to do with all these lusty feelings she's having. And so she's like, Yerebuni, photo booth. We got to get to the photo booth immediately. All right, Sabrina, tell me everything.
They go to this photo booth. They go to this photo booth and they sit in it and they make out a little bit. And it's very sweet.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And then they're like, let's take some pictures. And so they take their first picture smiling. Then they're like, serious face. And then it's like shocked, like pearl clutch. And then
Nare decides to fly too close to the sun. Nare's like, I want to kiss you in the last one. And Yerebuni's like, are you sure? Because that's a lot. And she's like, yeah, I'll just hide the photos or whatever. And so they kiss during this last photo, but it's one of those photo booths where the pictures come out on the outside wall, you dumbass. What are you doing here? Nare? So they get out of this booth after like maybe kissing a tiny bit more. Like, why wouldn't they?
Melody.
I know.
When I was reading this scene, I was like, Nare, of all of the dumb fucking shit you have done in the last 250 pages.
Yeah, this takes the cake.
This takes the cake so fucking hard. You are the problem, it's you.
Yes. Yes. So she gets out and her busybody, judgmental asshole aunt is out there holding the pictures and just looks delighted to have this dirt on a family member. And then her mom is standing at the lady's shoulder and she puts her glasses on so she can look over her shoulder and see what's going on. And like everybody's stomachs fall out of their butts.
So her mom drags her away and into like a private area, like a hallway, and she is lambasting her for doing something like this and in such a public place. Our family is here. What are they all gonna like? All of your family is here, and like, what do you think you're doing? And how could you? They're gonna be talking about me, not to me, about this. It's gonna ruin them, ruin us socially. And Nare takes the fucking coward's way out because she looks at her mother and she says, we'll deny it. We'll just deny it to everyone. It was supposed to be a cheek kiss and we bumped mouths instead. That's all. To save myself from ruin, I've stitched myself back together again with poison thread. I am a fake type of whole again, held together while it seeps into my skin, but not yet. Perhaps she kissed you. You did not kiss her. That's what her mom says. And Nare says, she's seeing the solution and it makes me feel wretched inside. Even though Irabuni
not wretched enough.
Even though Irabuni won't ever know this is how I made it through behind her back. The balm for my transgression is that I'm pointing my finger at Irabuni and crying, witch, sorceress, temptress, and everyone is going to buy it. A price she will never know about.
What I've never been simultaneously more baffled by a character and hated character more. And the mom, too. I hate the mom now.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, this, I'm speechless. I had to put the book down. I was so angry because she's so fucking spineless in this moment. Like, not only will she not stand up for herself, she's completely and utterly throwing Yerubuni under the bus, sacrificing her.
Do you remember earlier when we talked about how these safety nets have turned into webs that she can't escape?
Yeah.
This is when that fucking safety net turns into a fucking hangman's noose. She is hanging herself by her own...
I don't feel bad for her. I wish that she had suffered more.
Oh,
I know. Hoisted by her own petard.
She did not grovel enough, frankly, in this book. Not even close.
No.
This is unforgivable. I'll put it this way, like, and this is a me thing. I could never forgive somebody for doing this.
Especially in a community that is bigoted, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't innocuous. You know, blaming somebody for spilling the coffee or whatever. I don't love it, but, like, that's okay.
Well,
that's something you can get past.
We're about to see this because her mom leaves to go start spreading this false information, and Yerubuni
walks past Yerubuni as if she doesn't exist.
Yeah, because guess what? Yerubuni heard all of this, and she looks at Nare and says, "So you made me the bad guy?" And Nare tries to, like, start saying something, and then she says, "How are we supposed to be together out one day when your family thinks I'm this viper who's turned you? There's no way." And then Nare has the gall to be like, well, I'll tell them the truth about what happened tonight one day. And I could not believe that Yerubuni accepted that. Being made the villain for God knows how long, even a day, is too fucking long because this is their first impression of you. They are never going to forget this. They will never believe Nare if she says that you didn't turn her.
And it'll be so hard for anybody to see your relationship as anything but tawdry. Mm-hmm. It's not even about the one person. It's also about the relationship.
Yep.
Like, you are sending the message that this relationship is dirty and scandalous and tawdry and something we should be ashamed of.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
And she's so nice. She still, like, holds her hand and tries to be like, yeah, I really like you. I guess I could deal with this.
And then drunk Rafi shows up. And he's like,
oh my God.
Is this the person you're engaged to? I thought it was some dude in Europe. And Yerubuni has no idea, obviously, and is like, oh, well, you must be talking about somebody else. And he's like, no, that's reporter girl. She's definitely engaged to some dude. And then
Yerubuni, it looks over at Nare being like, I mean, tell him that's not true, you know? And Nare can't.
Yeah. So they go outside and have a fucking come to Jesus talk, and it is rough. And like, for real, Yerubuni is not in the wrong in any of this. And Nare is like,
no.
Oh, but like,
No, I can't even accept this being labeled as a come to Jesus talk because Nare is still equivocating, denying, making excuses, telling her she'll fix it somehow. She's not taking any responsibility for either of these things whatsoever.
And bless, Yerubuni, while they're outside, says, what am I supposed to think after all this? You're bi, but not. You're engaged, but not. Even at work, you want to confront your boss in theory, but you don't do it head on. I want to scream, pick one. You want everything and everyone, it seems. You can't play whatever side is most convenient at the moment. And then this is when Nare in her own head acknowledges, I see at once how I haven't been able to give up any of my safety nets. I can't sacrifice any of it. I don't know how to be anything else. There's nothing I can do. I can't change decades of being like this. Guess what, Nare? You can. That's part of growth as a person. And it's going to be hard. It's going to really fucking suck. You might lose some people. You might lose a lot
You're
of
going to be
things,
fucking embarrassed a lot because you need to fix being such an asshole.
Yeah. So Yerubuni, she's like, I liked you a lot.
So much.
and Nade clocks that she says liked instead of liked in past tense. And Irabuni is like, don't say anything. I cannot talk to you right now, and walks away.
She's so goddamn classy even in this moment.
I know. She handled it, period. This is not a conversation we would have ended up having, probably.
Yeah, right.
Because, like, I wouldn't have been able to have a conversation.
It would have been a screaming match, probably. Either that or I would be completely silent. I either wouldn't be able to speak or I would be shouting my brains out.
Yep. There's no in between. And so then we have the thing. It happens the next day. Like, Nade is all fucked up from the banquet the night before. This is when she goes to work. The whole thing happens. She gets fired. And then Mark, in this meeting, before she's actually fired, right? She's already gone off on her boss. Mark ends up snitching on the fact that she put an unauthorized story on the site. And Richard is like, all right, be out by the end of the day. And then bless her little posse that she didn't even know was her posse. Yeah.
The ladies of the newsroom come over.
Mackenzie, who's one of the anchors, is like, editing owes me, so like your story is gonna be on the air. It was wonderful. She's like, yeah, Richard and his sexist ass can go to hell. Let's do this. And it was just a really beautiful, like, shared moment between them.
Yeah, and she ends up watching her segment at home that day and pauses it on Yerabuni's face, and her mom walks in at that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, like, they won't even say her name or reference the relationship at all.
Mm-hmm.
And
that woman.
This is... and Nade finally is at this point where she's like, well, I don't have a job, and I certainly need one. And I don't have anything to lose anymore professionally. So she's going to turn this into an essay that she submits to a bunch of, like, big publications.
By the way, part of this is because she's thinking that this is a way to get Irabuni back. Like, this is an apology to Irabuni.
It's a Hail Mary, yeah. So after that, like, there's a bunch of stuff. She ends up, like, accidentally texting the group chat when it comes out. One of the friends in that friend group helped her edit it.
By the way, I just want this, like, out there. Yeah. I think I'm a little in love with Face.
I don't blame you. He's the one who can't dress, right?
He's the one who can't dress. He is a food critic, essentially, as a part-time job. But, like, he's also mostly a barista to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And every time he came on page, I was like...
Yeah, loving him.
I love you.
Yeah. So after that, she decides that, well, as they're texting in the group chat, because she accidentally texts there, and Yerabuni writes back and says, a really unexpected and wonderful piece, like, I'm proud of you. And then she privately texts Yerabuni, being like, hey, I bet you're still upset, but I'm wondering if you want to meet up. Mm-hmm. And she texts back, I'm still too hurt by our conversation.
Wait, importantly, before this article even gets accepted, okay?
Right. Oh, she tells Diana.
She gets a text from Trevor.
Oh, that's right, too.
And that means he's back in the U.S. And he's basically like, I'd love to see you. And she's like, I'd love to see you, too. Because she has decided she's going to get back with Trevor. Because she can't fuck that up. Which, girl.
And she's doing it out of spite to her mother as well. Mm-hmm. On the way out, she says, you want grandkids? Fine. Mm-hmm. And then goes over to see Trevor wearing the ring.
Yeah. And she misses a bunch of phone calls from her mom, and she's like, I don't want her to get the last word, so I'm not answering them. And she walks in and with the ring on, and he's so earnest. And she says, I got fired, just so you know. And he's like, oh, don't worry. I got a promotion and a nice bonus, so you never have to work again. And she's like,
if you don't want to, he says.
Yes. And she's like, if you don't want to, bro. And he kisses her. And immediately she knows this isn't going to work because she is revolted. And he comes back. Trevor.
Oh, Trevor.
He comes back with champagne to celebrate. And then we find out Trevor invited Katie to their reconciliation afternoon. And Nade very validly is like, what did you think she was going to do when we were like, enjoying the fact that we're together for the first time in 3 weeks?
Yeah, did you not want to bone?
Yeah. And he's like, I just
what
didn't
the fuck?
think about that. And then
no,
Katie,
you didn't, because you love Katie.
Well, and then Katie just straight up walks into the house instead of knocking, realizes it's awkward, and Nade's like, no, don't leave. And like, I'm leaving.
Wait, I love this though, because Katie walks in with some sort of champers or something and oysters.
Oysters like, are an aphrodisiac.
Well, not to mention that, like, is that a party food? Is that like a go-to potluck food in the upper echelons of white business tech bros?
That's not even like, an upper echelon business tech bro thing, at least like in Louisiana. Like, it's not necessarily super common, but like in San Francisco, like what are you doing? I don't know. I guess I'm not from San Francisco. Maybe oysters are a regular occurrence at a welcome back from Germany hangout.
But to me, it just struck me as like there is an odd one out here in this trio, and it's not Katie. Okay, yeah. Trevor loves the oysters she brought. That's brilliant to Trevor.
Yeah, you're right. And Nade's like, no, don't leave. I'm leaving. And as she's walking past Katie, she's like, by the way, he's single. And Katie looks at her and says, it's about time.
Yeah. And
Katie,
Nade's like,
Trevor,
get it, girl.
Y'all are going to be so happy together for the rest of your life. Like,
you will be insufferable, but that's not my business. You'll be so happy.
Well, oh my God. Okay, so Melody mentioned it earlier about the Armenian proverbs at the beginning of every chapter. And the next chapter opens with one that I legitimately had to put my book down because it made me start crying. Aww. And it was, I have found it very late and lost it very soon. And it's just
shit, yeah.
So fucking hard.
Ugh.
And this is when she comes out to Diana at the beach, and Diana's like, I've always known. And she's like, what? What do you mean you've always known?
Diana says, I knew that you hooked up with girls in college, you know.
And that it was more than a hookup. Like, it was more important to you than, like, me experimenting in college. Like, it was not the same thing.
Right.
And she's mostly hurt. Like, the reason she's unhappy right now, she's mostly hurt that Nade didn't confide in her.
Didn't feel safe to tell her.
Yeah, and, like, Nade has a very valid point of, yeah, but I was under the impression that if I tried to tell you, you would basically be, like, dismissive, and that's weird. Just be with a man. It's going to be easier. And Diana's like, in the past, I probably would have, but, like, my fiance's brother is gay, and he's in the closet. And, like, all of the...
Yeah, and I don't want that for him. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for anyone. I'm behind you 100%. Mm-hmm. And then she decides to come out to her mom. They're prepping green beans together, which I love.
Yeah. And her mom's like tearing through them like a professional, and she's like one green bean in when her mom's like 30 in, and it was very cute and very real. And she's too afraid initially to do anything. And so instead she starts off with, I ended it with Trevor for good. And her mom's like, oh, thank God. I was calling you to be like, don't do anything rash.
Right.
Like, don't do anything rash. And I just want you to be happy. Then she opens up and she finally tells her, so I wasn't honest with you. Irabuni and I had started dating, and I've always been bisexual. And her mom, this tracks. Her mom's like, but you're so girly. Are you sure that you're into women?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and love Nare, because she's like, oh yeah, I'm sure. She's like, I hope that didn't come out too lasciviously.
Yeah. And then her mom looks at her, and this is the only thing that's important to her mother. She says, does this mean that you're not going to have kids? And Nare is like, no, I want children.
Yeah.
Just because I'm with a woman doesn't mean I'm not going to have babies.
Yeah.
Or children of some form.
I can even make sure I have an Armenian sperm donor, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, there's ways to do whatever we want. But before that happens, I'm so sorry. Mm-hmm. and I know I talked about it a little bit on Love and Other Disasters, but there is a moment with the mom where she's like, I'm just, like, I don't want this for you because it's going to be hard for you. And then the mom gets honest and she says, and it's going to be hard for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we need to do in society in general for people to start fucking understanding that your kid's sexuality is not about you.
Well, and this also came up in the reality wedding show book, Devon and Chris.
This isn't about you. You don't matter now.
Mm-hmm. That is very true. I had some empathy a little bit for her mom, though, just because of her history. When she says this specifically, I agree that it has nothing to do with her, right? Like, I'm so sorry. And luckily, by the end of this book, her mom is fully on board with that. And she's like, whatever, in the epilogue and everything. But she is talking about her history and the way she was raised and how, like, an unmarried woman, because I think they were in Lebanon, maybe. That's where she grew up. A woman unmarried walking with a man, like, you couldn't do that.
You would never see it.
Much less two men holding hands. They'd be murdered on the spot. Yeah. And she grew up with gay being a very different.
Yeah.
Like, that's not to say it's not
an executable offense.
Yeah, it's not that it's not a hate crime doesn't happen in the United States of America, because, like, Lord knows that's not true. But
it's not a governmentally sanctioned crime.
Exactly. And so it's maybe not empathy for her mom, but, like, it's hard to forget that, right? It's hard not to think about that when being worried about your child. But yes, I agree. Like, this has nothing to do with you, Mom.
That's not my issue.
Fuck you.
My issue is her being like, it's going to be hard for me to go to tea or what the fuck ever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, it's
fuck
not,
you.
Go fuck yourself.
Frankly.
So sorry.
And then her grandmother, Nene, apparently heard all of this, and she comes and tells a story about a woman she admired in her youth. And Nene lifts a finger. Back in Anjar, there was a woman I knew, older than me. She was a fierce fighter, from Moussa Dagh originally. Photographs of her with bullets up and down from her neck to her waist. They say she killed 50 enemy soldiers while defending her home. She and her family finally left in 1939, I believe, when France annexed it to Turkey for good. I was 9 years old then, and we met them soon after. Anjar was very small. She never married. She told me one time, after what she had seen and what she had done, she would never let a man be the boss of her. She was the most impressive woman I ever met, and when I married Hrant, I was sad that I couldn't be more like her. So I am telling you this because I think she is a bit like your friend Nar, my dear. The tall one who spoke at the banquet, who you were joking around with every time she got off the stage. Those two women, they hold themselves the same way. And, like, both Nare and her mom are like, what the fuck just happened? And then Nene is like, bring her over for dinner. Let us get to know her better.
And the mom noticeably bristles. I just want that noted for the record.
My mom sucks in a breath, stealing all the oxygen from the room, one step at a time for her. And that's probably a bit much to jump into. But then this made me laugh so hard because Nare looks at her mom and says, did you know about that? And her mom says, Nene is a mystery to you and me. Because, like, Nene just randomly comes out with these stories that nobody's about life, that nobody knows about, and it's just it's always very apropos to whatever is going on. Nene is the queen of this book.
Yeah, and her seeing the parallel between this woman and Yerebuni and, like, the way that they are warriors for the people who are important for them.
It was really,
was just yikes.
So now it's time to do the big thing. She ends up coming out on Instagram. And everything that she wrote for it was very beautiful. And it basically boils down to, I always thought, because I was, like, I'm bisexual, everyone. And I always thought because I've only been with men, coming out wasn't for me. But I met a woman who changed my mind. And I realized that coming out is for me. And it's important. And it was just really beautiful. And she wakes up the next morning. People are responding super duper well, like love and support. And she has a text message from Irabuni. It says, I read your post. I'm stunned. That was a vulnerable and well-written post. It must not have been easy. How are you feeling after it? And then she gets a second text message that says, you look very pretty in it too. And that is trying to keep it cool.
Over the moon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so they text back and forth. And then by the end of this text exchange, Irabuni is like, I understand if, you're a little bit hurt by my distance, but do you want to meet me at the most romantic place in the entire world that Melody can think of? And Nare...
I immediately was like, this is a Melody coded get back together. Yeah.
They go to like a tropical botanical garden or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. So Irabuni is the first one to bring up the conversation. Because
Nare stays cowardly to the end.
Yes. And it was really beautiful. So she says to her, I didn't mean to ghost you after the banquet, but I was so hurt. And I thought if we talked, I'd get back with you and pretend it never happened, but hold on to this resentment, let it poison our relationship. I didn't want that. I should have been more upfront, but I was pained and shocked by the engagement news by what you said to your mom. Irabuni, you are entirely too gracious.
I mean, incredible. What a person, Yeah. Holy shit. Mm-hmm. To Nare's credit, she doesn't try to whitewash her interaction with Trevor. She says, for about 2 minutes there, I was ready to get back with Trevor, in my grief and whatever, but kissing him made my stomach turn, and it felt like I wasn't just cheating on you, but I was cheating on myself. Mm-hmm. And finally, she tells her that she came out to her mom in addition to Instagram. And Irabuni's like, oh my gosh, you did? And she's okay with that. And, they talk about how the mom is tentative but on board and wants her to be happy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this was so important to me is Irabuni acknowledges something that gets talked about in a lot of ways that are more vitriolic than it necessarily needs to be, because Irabuni was very kind about the fact that she's not out, right? In a way that not a lot of people are willing to do. I don't know that I could be with somebody who was in the closet personally, just because and I don't know, who knows? Maybe I meet somebody that changes. But Irabuni says people's word, this is why part of why all of this hurt her so much was people's word. It's important to me. I like to trust, be full of abandon in relationships, friendships too. And while of course, I understand people's situations and coming out are different, it'd be very hard for me to be the hidden girlfriend. I can do that for a bit, but I need there to be some trust that it wouldn't be forever. And after that night, I wasn't sure I'd ever get it.
Yeah.
And that really spoke to me. And it says it better than I could ever say it. But that's exactly how I feel about that kind of thing. And God, Irabuni, what a beautiful human,
I know.
And then
I know.
Irabuni takes her hand and she's like, I'm so proud of you. You did it. Can I kiss you?
Duh. It's a hard yes, everybody. It's a hard yes. And then by the end of the day, end of this conversation, Nare's like, "Do you have any plans for the rest of the day / your life? Can we just stay hanging out?"
And she says, "I don't have any plans, but you." Also, importantly, Irabuni, contact queen, has a friend who's starting an Armenian news outlet and is looking for reporters. So, boom, Nare's got a job. And one that she feels passionate about. Yeah. And then, it's the epilogue. And the last proverb that we get is, it's better to go into captivity with the whole village than to go to a wedding alone.
Oh.
Fuck. And the epilogue happens at Diana's wedding. Irabuni is her date. Irabuni is the stag foretold in her Armenian coffee telling.
Yes.
And
the mom they walk up to the mom as she's grading some math homework because she's decided to start a tutoring business instead of, wasting away in retirement and grief. And so as they walk up, she refers to them as, "Oh, my girls."
Oh, no!
And it was so wonderful.
And then the reason
and
they're
it ends
going
with
up,
them dancing.
well, it's so cute because when they walk up, they're like, "Do you want to dance?" And her mom's like, "Yeah, let's go dance." And her grandma says, "I've been to so many weddings. I have danced at enough. I'm not dancing again. I have only 2 more weddings before I die.
Mm-hmm.
My other granddaughter and Nare and Erabuni. That is it."
Mm-hmm.
And like, Erabuni's like blushing and Nare's like, "That is,
Ooh!
I can hope."
Yeah.
And then there's this slow dance. And Irabuni Angel is like, to make you, like, we can sit this one out. And Nare's like, no. And so they're slow dancing. And then they kiss on the dance floor in front of everybody.
Yeah. And that asshole aunt gets the cold shoulder when she tries to gossip about them to another lady. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, no, book was wonderful.
Oh,
Book was wonderful. I just couldn't stand Nare for most of it. This is like hashtag unlikable heroine for me.
and it's one of those things where this book wouldn't have worked without a heroine that was like that. It was
Absolutely.
it was a lot being in her head the whole way through. But like this book wouldn't have happened without somebody who needed that level of growth, right?
Well, and it wouldn't have happened without an author who was capable of such nuance, and depth and care.
Well,
like,
because the only reason that this worked is because Nare was not just a surface level character.
Right.
It was like she was a character built from the ground up. And it was visible in everything about this book.
Mm-hmm. All right, Sabrina, what's your lady love? What?
My lady love this week.
Oh my goodness.
Is I posted on our social media the video of you calling my ADHDness out in Spy Master's Lady, and that being the most interacted with thing I've probably ever posted in my life, and every single person like, "Oh yeah, I totally got where Sabrina is," including you. My lady love is you acknowledging that in editing you were like, "Oh, I totally understand." Mel, when I tell you that every single time I get a notification, and it's everywhere, it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's TikTok. We've gotten direct messages on all of the places. Like, it is everywhere.
Yeah, and I feel like I should go on record because I only commented on Instagram, but I realized while editing that Sabrina wasn't doing an ADHD non sequitur. It just so happens that I was doing an ADHD half listen. That's what happened.
Like, I can't get on you about it because like I do an ADHD half listen. Half the time, if like what happened, this will happen sometimes like when we're recording because I have all my notes and you'll jump to something and I'll be like, I'll be half listening to you talk, but I'm like skimming to see if we missed anything important.
Yeah.
And so like sometimes I come back in and I'm like,
where'd she go?
I don't know how we got here. But like that's my lady love. And it's not even,
I love it.
The lady love isn't being right. It is the specifically,
I know.
The lady love is just the outpouring of support for something that is so, it's so small in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
I woke up to a comment this morning. Like the first thing I saw on my phone was like, all of you people, you're my lady love. Oh my god!
Very fun. Yeah.
What's your lady love, Mel?
All right. My lady love is having a kid from your neighborhood come up to you and excitedly tell you that they saw a baby bear. So, of course, you freak the fuck out and go walking over to the area to investigate, and then finding out that, oh, thank goodness, it's just a gopher. Like, I did not need possible mama bear in my neighborhood. I did not need that in my life. I did not need to worry about my kids encountering a mama bear.
Oh my God, now I'm wondering if I know what a gopher actually looks like.
They're big and chonky and fuzzy. And from far away, I guess they could look like a bear.
Oh my God, it's like a fat meerkat.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and like a short
baby bear. Oh my God.
This 10-year-old came up to me and so earnestly, so excitedly was like, I saw a baby bear. And I was like, really? Show me right now. Take me to the baby bear. Let's go see it right now.
All right.
Don't worry, everybody. It was just a gopher.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm relieved for you, frankly.
God, same.
Because, like, you don't fuck with a baby bear, because guess what?
No.
Baby bear means mama bear. And mama bear, you gonna fuck around and find out with mama bear.
Yeah. I don't need Valor Chen skipping off into the fucking field and encountering a mama bear, okay? Because the only being that brings more main character energy to life than Valor is a mama bear. Like,
okay. Mel.
All right.
Keep being a badass and love yourself as much as you love suspecting that an author has the ulterior motive to make you so fucking hungry.
I can't even like clip back. It's so good. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Heaving Bosoms is produced by us, Melody Carlisle and Sabrina Bradley. Editing is done by Melody Carlisle.
Our theme music is by the incredible singer-songwriter Brittany Fonts, and our art is by ultra-talented author Kate Pryor. If you like our show, remember to follow us on your favorite podcast app, rate us 5 stars, leave a nice review, and of course, tell all your friends about us, even if they don't read romance.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at heavingbosomspodcast@gmail.com. If you want more of us, visit patreon.com/heavingbosomspodcast. You can also find us on Instagram @heavingbosoms, on TikTok @heaving_bosoms, and in our Facebook group, the Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult.
Head over to our website to sign up for our newsletter, get our Reading Embrace printable, and check out my audiobooks at heavingbosoms.com. All right, we'll be back next week with more swoons and snark. See you then.